Imagine you're walking through a forest when you see a strange shape coming out of a tree. Then another one, and that's when you notice they all look exactly the same. Hi, my name is Sophia, and I'm a biologist. I've always been fascinated by dryads, creatures that combine plant and animal characteristics and fight to protect their forest. Dryads are one of the most interesting face species in my opinion, yet they are often forgotten. Today, I'm going to try to change that, because a biologically accurate dryad wouldn't look anything like a woman stuck to a tree, and what it would actually look like is far stranger. Part 1. Slow Life Strategy. Dryads would follow what we call a slow life strategy. When you are connected to something as stable as a tree, your survival isn't about speed, it's about persistence. Instead of growing fast and reproducing quickly, they would do the opposite. They would take years, maybe decades, to reach maturity. Being semi-sessile, dryads would probably reproduce both asexually and sexually. Most of the time, they would expand by creating clones of themselves. But sexual reproduction would happen differently, through massive, synchronized spore release events. For one specific night or one specific day, the entire forest would release spores at the same time, increasing the chances of genetic exchange and survival. And honestly, I think the most interesting part is deciding when that happens. Is it during the longest night of the year, the first spring rain, a sacred festival in your world? And now you can connect biology with culture. If you want to keep dryads all female, this would mean that dryads would be protogynous hermaphrodites, switching from female to male to mate. Sometimes in stories, dryads can reproduce with humans, or satyrs, but the most accepted definition for species says that if the offspring isn't sterile, that means the parents are from the same species. And I think most people would argue that humans and dryads are different species. Being slow life strategists, dryads would have very few offspring, but invest a lot into each one. And in return, they would live for a very long time. And there's another consequence of being tied to a tree. You can't run away. So instead of escaping danger, you have to resist it. In nature, sessile organisms often rely on chemical defenses. They produce toxins or compounds that make them difficult or even dangerous to consume. Dryads would likely do the same. Instead of speed or strength, their survival would depend on making themselves and their tree too costly to attack. Dryads would be biologically tied to their trees, not just magically, but functionally. Their tree wouldn't be just a home, it would be their life support system. Part 2. Parasitism. So the question becomes, is this a symbiotic relationship or something closer to parasitism? Because a dryad depends entirely on the tree. If the tree dies, the dryad dies. If the tree lacks nutrients, it is forced to act. So what is this relationship really? Is the dryad helping the tree or using it? This isn't a simple question. The dryad depends entirely on the tree. The dryad draws water, nutrients, and energy from it. Not constantly, but whenever the tree can support it. Most of the time, it remains merged with the tree, almost like an extension of the organism itself. In that sense, it starts to look a lot like parasitism. But at the same time, the dryad protects it. It defends the tree from herbivores, from other creatures, maybe even from diseases. Dryads can react to threats in ways a tree never could, moving, fighting, making decisions. And because of that, a tree with a dryad might survive longer, grow stronger, and outcompete others. So maybe this isn't parasitism, it's mutualism, but not a very balanced one. Because a dryad cannot exist without a tree, but a tree might be able to exist without it, which means this relationship is slightly asymmetric. The dryad takes, but it also gives back just enough to make its presence beneficial. And over time, that turns them into something else. Not two separate organisms, but a single system, like corals and zooxanthellae. Part 3. Social structure and behavior. Forests are not a group of trees, but rather a giant web. They are connected underground by a mycorrhizal network, a vast, hidden web of fungi that connects tree roots to share nutrients, water, and information. This system allows trees to communicate and act as a cooperative community rather than just individuals. Knowing that dryads are connected to their trees, that means that they are, too, connected to the mycorrhizal network. Dryads can communicate with one another even if they are kilometers apart, and warn their sisters of any danger that sets foot in any part of the forest. They would be able to coordinate attacks without moving or making any sound, speaking with each other underground, without any of the intruders being able to know what is happening. Speaking of defense, it would make sense for dryads to cultivate predatory vines to protect themselves, apart from the venomous compounds I talked about earlier. Also, being magical creatures, dryads would be able to use that power to enchant and make their attackers move away without needing to leave the tree and fight. This enchantment is a lot of times referenced in dryads myths and fantasy, and it makes total sense for this species that barely moves. The fact that they are connected to trees that might be deciduous will also make dryads hibernate. They would need to conserve as much energy as possible, and a status during the harvest season makes total sense. They would enter a dormant phase, surviving on stored nutrients before growing again in the spring. For some dryads, however, the most difficult season might be the summer, if they live in climates like the Mediterranean one, for example. Here, we have plants that evolved to resist dryness, and not the cold. Think about the climate in your world. What is the harvest season? Part 4. Building a biologically accurate dryad. Given everything I talked about, what would a dryad actually look like? Well, first of all, probably not humanoid. Dryads are tied to trees, so their bodies wouldn't be built for mobility, but for integration. Instead of smooth skin and symmetrical features, they might have textures closer to bark. They wouldn't look like a person, but more like an extension of the tree itself. Their limbs could grow like branches, extending and twisting over time rather than reacting instantly. They might have more than the 2 arms we are used to seeing. And their perception would not rely on sight alone. Through their connection to the tree and the surrounding network, dryads could sense vibrations or chemical signs. Vision, if present, might extend into ultraviolet or be secondary to other forms of perception entirely. Defense would also be part of their biology. Toxins or sharp structures could make them difficult to harm, reinforcing the idea that they don't escape threats, they endure them. And, like the trees they are bound to, they wouldn't look the same all year. Their form would shift with the seasons, more active during periods of growth and dormant when resources are scarce. Dryads are ancient, slow, and deeply connected to everything around them. And that's exactly what makes them fascinating. Now that you know that, how does it change the way you use them in your own world? The biology is already there. You just have to use it. If you want to do the same with fairies, check out my last video. And if there's another species you want me to cover, let me know in the comments. Now, go create!